Bride is a gothic romance film about a lonely Frankenstein who travels to 1930s Chicago to ask a scientist to create a companion for him. The two revive a murdered young woman and the bride is born. Before I get to this review, leave for more film content. The trailers for the movie really had my curiosity since it has that steampunk style to it that looked very interesting that I have not seen from a Frankenstein movie. And since I was disappointed of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, I was hoping this movie would be better. And it was, but I do think it is heavily flawed. Jessie Buckley is just absolutely insane, she's unhinged, and I was loving her performance. She is going to town with this character that I did find very fascinating of her philosophy of how she views herself in this society that she's living in. And I also think that Christian Bale is great as well as Frankenstein, who lives by the name Frankenstein as his father has essentially passed away. He's just looking for a lover that just feels very lonely and just want to be with someone. The first half of this movie is just so great. I love the style of the steampunk era while also having some experimental approach to this that I did find is creating a lot of creative strides. The style is really cool, the writing was interesting, the cinematography was very impressive, and the soundtrack was just very booming. It was a ton of fun to watch in the first half that I was just really on board with this movie. It was just going by so fast, and there are some moments where Jessie Buckley is just acting her ass off, especially with the monologue that she does, that I did find very interesting. I was buying the chemistry between Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley that I did feel this was way more interesting than the other Frankenstein film that I've seen. That is until the second half comes in when these two characters do become a little bit more prominent, and I do think that the movie was starting to run out of steam. They were fine in the first half, but I think when they become more of a focus, I was just really not all that interested in these two characters, that even though they have some form of connection to the bride, I just really didn't care. It just felt very messy, and I do think that the stylization in the first half is barely in the second half that honestly make it feel like a normie film. It just couldn't keep up with its style and its momentum that when it gets to the end of the film, I was getting a little tired. There were still some good parts in the second half that were from the first half, but it's nowhere near as effective, and I do find the ending to be a little corny in some areas. But regardless, I do think that this movie definitely took a swing at it and tried to do something different that I definitely feel much appreciated from the first half, whereas the second half, it does feel kinda tame, kinda normal, that I was nowhere near as interested, but it's still enough for me to like the film overall. I give this film a 6 out of 10. If you like this review, leave a like, favorite, and follow more film review content.